Okay, Gregory, I need you to explain to me how a Democratic governor posting tiny hands in all caps is sending our friends over at Fox News into a tailspin.
Right. So you're talking about Gavin Newsom and his recent unhinged activity on X for the past few weeks, I assume?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure there's a lot going on in the road, right?
Understood.
Yeah, I mean, the conservative sphere is having a complete meltdown because they can't critique Gavin Newsom's style without drawing comparisons to Trump, because after all, it is Trump's style.
Dana Perino called his post juvenile, and she told him, put the phone away, completely missing that she was critiquing the exact parody of her preferred president.
Right, and now this man, Gavin Newsom, is citing his post, GCN, to mock Trump's signature line of DJT. Newsom has even gone as far as calling him Donald Taco Trump, which
Go on.
no, it's okay. Which, if for those viewers that don't know, stands for Trump always chickens out, coming out from the tariffs. But yet somehow amongst all this, the Democrats are the ones that are breaking the norms.
You know, let's absorb what actually is happening here. Newsom sent Trump a letter demanding that he, Trump, stop Texas from rigging congressional maps. He gave him 24 hours to respond, and when Trump ignored it,
He went full MAGA mode and activated, right? He tweeted out, Donald Trump, the lowest polling president in recent history. This is your second to last warning.
with AI-generated images of himself on Mount Rushmore mocking Trump's tiny hands and claiming to be America's most favorite governor.
Yeah, and here's the thing about those posts, right? They're hilarious, but they've also generated over a billion impressions. The governor's press office has gained 250,000 followers. And even Google searches for Gavin Newsom are up 500%. So they're extremely effective.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Texas Republicans are trying to steal 5 congressional seats mid-decade at Trump's request, the president's request, breaking 200 years of redistricting protocol.
Yeah, so Newsom announced that California is going to draw its own map to flip 5 seats to Democrats. But here's the key difference, and you need to underscore this. He's putting it to the voters in November.
So one side breaks Democratic norms in secret. The other side responds transparently and with voter approval. But guess which one is getting called undemocratic? So let's be clear here. This isn't just about tweets and maps, because what Newsom figured out is something Democrats have been failing at for a decade.
What's that? How to speak the language of 2025?
That part. That part. He's cracked the code, and that attention equals power. And sometimes democracy really does require you to get your hands dirty.
So Darrious, I think that means that the question here is that when you use their tactics against them, are you fighting fascism or are you becoming it? Okay, Darrious, so my first reaction in seeing all this was just pure joy at watching the Fox News anchors criticize Trump while trying to attack Gavin Newsom.
You know, and speaking of Fox News, Fox Newser Trace Gallagher called the post, this word keeps getting me, unpresidential. And I'm watching this and I'm going, sir, are you aware of who the current president is?
I mean, you would think that they might since he's on their show. But you know, the thing is that these memes are unhinged. Can you take a look at these and just appreciate these?
They bring me joy.
I mean, so these are user-generated images. So this is not Gavin Newsom. Well, this one might be generated, but these are actual users that are generating these, which means that they're buying in, right? So you have images of Gavin Newsom shirtless on velociraptors, on bears, like we have right here.
Is that Melania?
I do believe that is Melania. Again, these are user-generated, so you know, it's up to the user's imagination on them. But all of these somehow do feel wildly appropriate for politics in 2025.
And it's almost refreshing that no matter what your politics are, that the Democratic side is doing this. I feel like Gavin Newsom has Beyonce'd me.
Explain that.
I had to grow my love for Beyonce. I was not always a deep, deep fan. And then she did something, and I fell in love, and I went, how have I missed you before? And 3 weeks ago, I was not the biggest fan of the governor of California. And now, much like Steve Bannon, I said Steve Bannon,
You did.
he's calling Newsom's strategy brilliant. And he's saying he's energized Democrats in ways no one else has managed. So, again, I have love and respect, but when Steve Bannon is praising your political instincts, you have either mastered the game or you have completely sold your soul. I'm not sure which at this point.
Usually with Steve Bannon, it's selling your soul, but given that we're talking about a liberal governor here, I'm going to assume that the Newsom team didn't do that. But what's actually like really profound about this, though, is that you have Newsom, who is exposing essentially the complete normalization of Trump and Trumpism, right? And it's reflecting it back perfectly, which is driving the MAGA world insane.
But here's the thing, while it's driving them insane, it continues. A quote from CNN's Andrew Carroll wrote, "The effort is clearly designed to hold up a mirror to MAGA and bully the bullies. But it's also evidently gone over their heads. So they're angry, but they're not seeing the irony of this." So help me with that.
Well, I don't know if I can help you because they're literally making the point for him by being so outraged by this style, right? So every time they criticize his post, they're inadvertently criticizing Trump without realizing it.
And just when I says, is it that they don't realize it, or the realization would blow up the entire house of cards?
I think that it's the realization will blow up the whole entire house of cards. I mean,
So we're just going to double down on stupid.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Okay. So it's like watching, someone complain of their reflection in the funhouse mirror. But I think it also is revealing something deeper about liberal, quote unquote, versus conservative accountability standards. We've always done this respectability politics thing on the Democratic side that just drives me to distraction. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and I know exactly what you're talking about, right? I mean, let's just take this current example of Newsom, right? He adopts Trump's style, and immediately, like, all of a sudden there's this constitutional crisis in the country, at least according now to right-wing media, there is, because of the way that a liberal governor is communicating, even though it's mirroring perfectly for what 9 years Trump has done day in and day out on Twitter.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you talk about that. I think about if President Barack Hussein Obama had done, I question a bit, had done anything that the current president is doing, or responded in the way that the governor of California has finally started doing, if we'd be having a different conversation right now. That's just...
I mean, the man got crucified for wearing a tan suit.
That part.
And the current man in the office is wearing a red hat that he's merchandising, selling, profiting, making money off of, and not even a tie in the Oval Office. So I think we know exactly what would happen if the tables were switched
So a
here.
decade of grabbing them by whatever, saying just the most cruel, harsh things. It feels like we are in a state where if you are a bully, you are judged differently. And if you're supposed to be the precious one, then the standards are so high for you, you can't breathe and respond. So you just clutch your pearls as the bully is behaving badly. And that behavior becomes more normalized. And I think ultimately, though, the substance of all of this, when we look at the substance, Republicans in Texas are literally rigging in secret but in plain sight. They're literally rigging an election. So all of the name calling, all of the gifs or GIFs or whatever the youngins call them, the substance of it feels like it continues to get lost with all the noise.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that what you have to think about here is that the Texas Republicans were trying to do this all in secrecy. So had it not been for Newsom taking this ridiculous caricature, this may not have come to light or gotten as much time from media mainstream discourse. that it has, because he's just kept up the entire act, right? So that's one aspect to keep into consideration here, is that him trolling on X has brought...
It's almost shocked the system.
It actually has shocked the system, right? But there's only so much that you can do to shock the system, because Republicans are going to Republican. They're going to cheat. If they can cheat in whatever way, and I know people are going to be out there and not...
But this isn't judgy. This is based on current facts.
Yeah, I mean, you can take it
This
from...
is cheating.
This is cheating. You can take it from as simple as gerrymandering, which we understand cuts both ways.
Yeah.
But to this level, to break it with the census is just unheard of and absurd. Or you can kind of look at like other dispositions that Republicans take, like sending some of their force to the National Guard of DC to nationalize, which quite frankly is none of their business, and they should probably pray really hard that nothing happens in their state where they need their National Guard to actually help them.
That part. And I think what I appreciate, what gives me some hope, and I think we're all in search of some hope, what Gavin Newsom, and hopefully it takes that first person for others to go, yes, we can do this. I like it that he said, I see you, I mock you, and I'm not so precious to tell you I won't do the same thing. So you want to play tit for tat? If that's where we are, I have to accept that that's where we are. So you take 5, we'll take 5. And then we'll do it in a way that is transparent, and we will go to the voters and explain it. We're gerrymandering. But here is why, for the greater good of the democracy, and we want your support in doing it temporarily, is literally, he's very clear about it.
Yeah.
So I think those, you got 200 years of precedent being overturned in secret, and you got the other side finally going, okay, we can tit for tat, but we don't have to go completely into the gutter, but we do got to get some dirt on this. and so I think that's what's giving me hope. But liberals always, much like Republicans, liberals be liberaling.
That's very true. Unfortunately, yes. And it doesn't always, it really never comes out the way that you would want it to.
So here, the other lesson I'm learning from this, and we've talked about this as we've been prepping shows for this season, the algorithm tends to reward outrage over nuance. So we sit here on the programs and we talk about nuance. But outrage is rewarded, spectacle is over substance. And I think Trump figured this out in 2015. And I'm hoping that version 2.0 of it will be what Gavin Newsom is helping us to all figure out in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I think that taking Trump's tactics in his style of communication and kind of flipping the script, reflecting the mirror, is really showing Democrats how to kind of fight back effectively, at least in this kind of portion, at this current time and conjunction. It kind of reminds me of Matt Bennett from Third Way. What he had said was that Newsom's strategy has been really cathartic for Democrats, because we're just seething in the daily outrages of Trump and the Trump administration, and we feel inadequate for how we're able to react or communicate, effectively to folks about the absurdities that are taking place and, the unconstitutionalities that are taking place and the jeopardization of democracy that's taking place. Whether or not people want to, wake up to it or not is a whole other story, but at least this kind of captures their attention.
Yeah, and I watch all of this happening, and again, I think the lesson here for Democrats and liberals: fight fire with fire. Stop being so daggone precious. But you don't have to toss out the baby with the bathwater. You can still be realistic about where we are. You are fighting authoritarianism. You got to put your back into it. You got to put your.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
But you don't have to lose yourself along the way. You can say to us, because so many of us are going, do something. Those of you who we put in these roles to govern, we want do something, say something more than a press release or a mocking statement. Because what Newsom is doing is both. He is petty mocking, which brings me joy, and he is also policy. He is pushing it through. He is very clear. I did not understand until Newsom made it clear how much this country depended on California and not the other way around. I mean, so we get all this noise, but he's saying, no, we have power. I think what he's showing us, you've got power, untapped power, but sometimes silliness so overwhelms our good, respectable spirits, we get vapor locked. Mm-hmm. And I think what he's doing is kind of untapping that for us. But the bigger lesson here for me, and we'll hold him to it as well. I like you today. I'll like you tomorrow if you keep doing and honoring your word. Just because I like you today, if you change up tomorrow and you start becoming the true authoritarian like the person who is leading our country right now, we will hold you to the same standards.
But I think to that point, though, Darrious, is another difference between liberals and conservatives. On the liberal side, we tend to fall into this trap of a purity test. So if we are willing to lend power in this position, it's temporary. As soon as you cross the line, as soon as you overstep,
everyone's put you back in your place.
Yes, you're back in your place. Whereas, especially within the world of MAGA, I mean, I'm going to call it a cult, a cult of personality or whatever you want to call it. But I think cult is somewhere in that title of it. There is none of that, even when things are overstepped. And I mean, you might share on policies, but when you look at even some of the cruelties that the administration does, right? If you take a look at things around immigration and the fear that is instilled in this country, and not just for illegal immigrants, but for anybody that's a person of color, you see kind of
or the fear, even if I can jump in here, the fear that I see instilled in immigrants who have been here for 30 years against other immigrants coming in now. It is breathtaking and unsettling, but you hit a point here and you are absolutely correct. We get in trouble because we want the perfect candidate. I go back to President Barack Hussein Obama. I don't know how that man and FLOTUS got through 8 years where there was no room to be anything but perfect, and that's everybody's version of perfect. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe the lesson here, one of the chances and opportunities here, I said it earlier, he is not my perfect candidate. I don't need perfect. Perfect is an ideal at best.
Right.
What I don't need is catastrophe and authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, all I was going to say is that I think that at this moment, some people might argue that Gavin Newsom is the perfect presidential candidate. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. We'll find out. Yeah. I would say what other people who want to throw their hat in the ring should do, though, is take a look at this and how he's communicating.
That part.
I will say the only thing is that I think this shtick will only get you so far.
Agreed.
And the other thing that I kind of love to point out too is that obviously everyone has a team that helps them with marketing and communication. These tweets are being written by a 29-year-old white woman. Yeah. So it is interesting, right? Like it's not necessarily him, but he and his team have the keen insight that we have to try something different and so absurd to break through the noise. Yeah. Because what you're up against if you don't do this is the actual reality of the real world, which is overwhelming, depressing, and deflating, at least right now.
Ooh, that just threw me back for a beat, but you're absolutely correct. And what I'm hoping, as I'm watching all this and experiencing all this, and it feels like every hour on the hour, I remember saying something when the pandemic happened that some would say we are still experiencing to some degree. If there has ever been a time in our lifetimes to try something different, to talk to someone you wouldn't necessarily talk to, or try on an idea that you wouldn't necessarily have, it feels like this would be the time that we should all try something new. And for liberals and Democrats, that might be saying it like you mean it, not trying to be the perfect candidate, because when you're trying to be liked by everyone, you're ultimately liked by no one.
And Darrious, you know what we call that?
What do we call that?
Profound.
Come on with it. Won't he do it?
Hi, I'm Bianca Cotton. Join me Mondays at 7 p.m. as I sit in conversation with incredible, dynamic, and complex Chicagoans who peel back the layers, living lessons, the joy, and the pain behind their confident smiles. Join the conversation Mondays at 7 p.m. on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19 and streaming on cantv.org and CAN-TV Plus app.
On the fall premiere of Chicago Newsroom 2.0, Hugo Balta and city leaders discuss the president's National Guard threats and escalating attacks on Chicago's immigrant communities. Plus, the premiere of the new monthly segment, Inside Oversight with Inspector General Deborah Witzberg. Tune in on Thursday, September 11th at 7 p.m. on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19, stream on cantv.org, or on the CAN-TV Plus app. Hyper-local news and critical analysis. Experience the power of community television.
So Gregory, you've been thinking about something that connects all of this whole mirror strategy. Share with the group.
Okay, so what I need to talk about here is going to be accountability, and specifically the accountability trap that liberals fall into every single time we try to fight back, right? So Newsom starts trolling Trump with his own tactics, and immediately, like on day one, Democrats start wringing their hands about, oh my God, norms and getting rid of, we're setting a bad example and this isn't who we are. Where was this energy for the past 9 years at exactly? When Trump has been calling people human scum, he's incited insurrections, he's stolen classified documents, he's been convicted of 34 felonies, but God forbid any single Democratic governor call him tiny hands because suddenly we're the ones that are destroying the political discourse. This is what I call the accountability trap, right? We love to hold our leaders to an impossible standard, but we seemingly give unlimited grace to conservatives who literally tried to overthrow democracy. Newsom posts memes for 2 weeks, and Democrats are like, is this really who we want to be? Is this who we are? Is this how we're going to be represented? But meanwhile, Trump's entire political career is built on memes and cruelty. And what do Republicans do in response to that? They worship him as a god emperor. But here's what's making me lose my actual mind, okay? Is that Newsom is still playing the Democratic roles. He's putting redistricting plan to the voters. He's trusting people that they're going to make the right decision here. And Texas Republicans, in the meantime, are stealing elections in secret, while California Democrats are asking permission in public. But somehow, we're the threat to democracy, okay? This is why we keep losing. Because we're so terrified of being imperfect that we let fascists walk all over us while we debate the ethics of fighting back. Darrious, here's a newsflash.
Give it to us. Give it to us.
There is no perfect candidate, okay? There's no such thing as a pure strategy. There simply are people who are willing to fight for democracy, and there are people who are willing to destroy it.
My God.
Now, Newsom figured out how to dominate the news cycle. He has figured out how to expose conservative hypocrisy. He's figured out how to energize the Democratic base, and he's done all this while still being able to respect voter choice. But yet we're going to sit here and we're going to nitpick his tweets instead of celebrating that finally somebody has learned how to win on the left side. You know what's profoundly petty?
What's that?
Demanding moral purity from Democrats while excusing literal fascism from conservatives. And if trolling on Twitter is what it's going to take to save democracy, then I say troll away, Governor, troll away. Because the alternative is watching the dismantlement of democracy in action as Republicans try to rig the system while we simply write strong-worded op-eds about civility.
Okay, if I could, without turning off the mic, I would stand up and applaud. The insanity of all of this is too much. The double standard, it blows my mind. Newsom adopts Trump's style and immediately gets lectures about freaking presidential behavior.
Right, and this is from the same people, mind you, that normalized crooked Hillary and sleepy Joe Biden.
All of that. But you're right about the accountability piece. We will scrutinize every word Newsom says while Trump's gets graded on the curve from hell.
I mean, the man is literally asking voters, and by the man I mean Gavin Newsom, is literally asking the voters for permission to fight back, and somehow people were turning that into authoritarianism.
And that's the accountability trap. We demand perfection from ourselves while accepting fascism from them.
And Darrious, to that, I say, just get over it.
Come on.
I'm Curtis Tarver, inviting you to tune into the season premiere of Brothers Talking, a monthly program that brings together a cross-generational group of Black men, creating a brave space for honest, fearless discussion about the issues and challenges and opportunities for growth experienced by Black men. Join the conversation on CAN-TV, Cable Channel 19, or stream online at cantv.org or the CAN-TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
Time now for Pretty Petty Please, where we celebrate people effing around and finding out.
So Darrious, let's start with Dana Perino and Trace Gallagher, who spent an entire Fox segment criticizing Newsom's juvenile post without realizing they were describing Trump's communication style.
Newsom's response, though. Here's his response. Dana, ding dong, Perino, never heard of her until today, is melting down because of me. Got 5.2 million views.
And that's perfection right there. Next, let's talk about conservative pundits calling Newsom's strategy embarrassing and unpresidential while supporting a man who posts on Truth Social at 3 a.m. in the morning when he should be sleeping.
Tommy Lahren said Newsom, quote, embarrassed himself to such a degree that it disqualifies him from the presidency. Ma'am, your candidate became president using this exact same strategy. The White House responded to Newsom with a, quote, Mad Men meme, which Politico called the first official White House press statement delivered exclusively in meme form.
Right, Darrious. So that means that the POTUS is now officially communicating via GIF, and I think that means that we've officially reached peak 2025. Oh, God. And for, I think, this week's final FAFO, we should give it to the Texas Republicans that thought they could rig elections directly and quietly, but then Newsom's trolling turned the redistricting scheme into a national story.
Now they're facing lawsuits and protests and a California countermap that could neutralize their entire freaking strategy. So here's what we've learned. When you hold up a mirror to someone's behavior, they hate what they see reflected back.
And conservative media spent a decade normalizing Trump's communication style, but the single moment that a Democrat uses it, suddenly it's a threat to democracy.
So this is this week's blessing. Shall we have it?
Yes.
Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom for finally figuring out how to speak the language of 2025 while still trusting voters enough to make democratic decisions. How about that?
I love that. How about for this week's block, we give it to anyone that's demanding moral purity from Democrats while excusing literal authoritarianism from Republicans. I mean, that double standard is quite literally exhausting.
Ain't nobody getting the morality ring. You're not getting it. The real lesson here is that sometimes the most democratic thing you can do is fight fire with fire, but do it transparently, with accountability, and with the approval of the voter.
And let's remember that Newsom isn't trying to become Trump. He's actually just showing us what Trump actually looks like by doing a perfect impression. And no surprise here, but MAGA hates it because that mirror really does work.
So to everyone who's been waiting for Democrats to finally fight back with the same energy Republicans bring to every battle, this is what it looks like. And my God, I'm here for it.
And with that, stay petty with purpose, stay profound in your principles, and remember, when someone shows you who they are through their tweets, believe them.
We'll see you next week for another deep dive into the beautiful mess where the petty meets the profound.